Hey guys, so this video I decided I was going to make about people pleasing. A lot of my journey's been, as I stated, figuring out my authentic self, figuring out who I am outside of other people's descriptions of me, and who I thought that other people expected me to be. So a lot of that comes with people pleasing. And for those of you that know, you know. But people pleasing is when you're doing things for other people with the expectation of, I do this thing and then they're going to tell me how great I am. And I can see in my past where I did that a lot of times because it was expected of me. And then I thought, if I don't do this, then they're going to be mad at me. They're going to think I'm horrible. They're going to think, some negative thing about me. But a lot of I think I have had people misunderstand me a lot throughout the years because when they say, like, what's your love language, um, I, I, I think that for me, it wasn't just one thing. It was all of the things. So a lot of times it was, I would do things for people because I love them and because I want to help them. I don't want to see them in pain. I don't want to see them frustrated, upset. I want to relieve some sort of stress. Gifts that I would give. I would always say, like, I think I'm a pretty good gift giver because I would get to know people and pay attention to the things that they like, to the words that they said about things they wish they had, and then I'm like I don't know what you'd call it, like in video games, the one where it would be like you tell this person what you need and then they go and get it and bring it back to you. The the gopher or whatever, but um so a lot of my gift giving and the ways that I would express myself, I would say in almost all the ways I express myself is I would want that person to be seen and heard. I would want them to know, I was paying attention. I heard what you said. I know what you like. I want you to know that this gift was specifically for you, or this thing was specifically for you because I see you and I hear you. But I think sometimes people pleasing, and that's where I guess people pleasing could be perceived, by others. It could be perceived as people pleasing, you know, um, and that was part of the me feeling misunderstood a lot of times. Um, Especially if you have relationships with people where don't they don't see that about people, or they don't pay attention. So then it becomes competitive. I think our world is a lot of competition right now. That's what it's designed to do in this 3D world. Is so many people are, that old saying about like keeping up with the Joneses. So many people are comparing themselves to other people, and I think for me, um, I used to, I guess, do things out of, if I was made to feel guilty. Like, if you don't do this for me, I guess I'll just be sad or something, and then I'd give in. And that was people pleasing in a, I don't know, to avoid the negative, I guess, not necessarily get a positive, but avoid a negative from other people. And then in the job that I had, I started out and the boss I had was like, you cannot save people. You will not be able to fulfill everybody's needs. There's only so much you can do. At the end of the day, you have to sit it down and you have to have boundaries because, people are desperate and people have needs, and you're not going to be the one that's going to be able to fulfill all of those. And that's where my job working with the homeless really helped me establish boundaries, because it was also in telling those people, establish boundaries. Don't give all your stuff away, because then you need it. Because I saw so many acts of kindness between people that were like, I would ask, like, what happened to your coat? And they were like, I gave it to somebody else because they needed it. And I think when I was a single mother, my children saw me like this, like me being self-sacrificial. So then they would do it too, where I'd say, like, well, what happened to your coat? And they would say, I gave it away to this kid that needed it. Or, what about your lunch? I gave it away to this kid who was hungry. And it was only in me going through the things that I went through, and like I said, self-reflection, a lot of it's self-reflection. This whole spiritual awakening is not a pleasant thing. It's not a pleasant thing when you have to turn the mirror on yourself and say, what have I done? What are my portions of all of this? Because sometimes you might not like yourself. And I know when I had realized, like, I was a people pleaser for so much of my life. I was, guilted into doing things. I was so afraid of rejection that I would just give in all the time. And then that would make me feel like a tool. That would make me feel um, like I have no choice in it. Like all of my energy is getting expended for other people, not for myself. And then expecting like somebody else to, fill up my cup when I was like, I don't even have a cup because I gave my cup away, and so people pleasing really does damage to the self, because if you expect somebody else to tell you, to have your self-worth in their hands and to tell you that you're great because you did something for them, then if they don't, you're going to be devastated. You're going to build up resentment, thinking, well, I did all this for you. What about me? I had spent so much of my adult life doing that, where I was the friend people would call. I was the one that if somebody was moving, I'm going to help. I was the one, if somebody needs, you know, um, something that they can't get, I'm going to find it and I'm going to get it. But then at the end of the day, I'd be like, I have nothing left. Like, there's no more of me to give. The well has run dry. And I think a lot of times, too, that comes with emotions. It's not just in, I would say, tangible things that people pleasing can come about, but, you know, um, feeling like sometimes you have to hold everybody else's emotions. Like you have to regulate everything for everybody. It depletes you. And I know for me that was my job, was I have to be this tough person for everybody. I have to be able to calm down this person long enough to get them help. I have to be able to um, regulate my own emotions enough to know to not take things personally that they're saying, that I'm just the one they're experiencing it with them. Because so many times in so many relationships, I would be the one to emotionally hold everybody. of it's my job to regulate the temperature in the room. It's my job to um, keep that person happy, because if they're not happy, then they're going to leave, and so I think part of the spiritual awakening is when you realize those weaknesses about yourself, of the differences between them. I had done that for years, of saying, like, I can't be pleasing for everybody. I can't be a tool every single minute of every day to do everything for everybody. But a lot of times, I think if people have that mindset that that's how they see you doing things, then they're going to think you're people pleasing in everything that you do, not necessarily that you're trying to make people feel seen and heard. Because I realized that I could do that to a certain extent, but that it was not my job to be the one to please everybody, to keep everybody happy, because that's not life. Somebody's going to be upset at some time. I think I had mentioned in a previous video about how I used to have this shirt that said haters gonna hate, and it had those old guys from the Muppet Show, that used to sit in the theater. And I used to think those guys were hilarious, but that was because, I just thought, like, of course, like, not everybody's gonna like me. A lot of people don't like me. And you know why they don't like me? Because I tell the truth, because I speak out, because I call BS on things, because I'm so much about injustice. But it took me a long time to realize, like, I have to speak out for myself more in, not allowing people to put me in people pleasing situations, because I would feel so guilty. Like, when my job started, I would feel so guilty about, like, I want to help everybody with everything. I've only got 8 hours in the day, and 9 if I work through lunch, and at the end of the day I still can't get this person the thing that they need. And it was never about me. I never did any of it for the props. If any of you have ever worked in social work, like, it's not about the props and it's not about the pay. Like, you have to have something in you to be able to work within a field where it's going to be, people with needs. And then you have to be able to know that you can't be everything to everybody. And so I just wanted to throw that out there for people that might be struggling with people pleasing, knowing that it's okay to say no. It's okay to say, I cannot do this, or I can't do anymore. I have to restore my energy. I have to, we're all energy. That's one thing that I learned about, having this spiritual awakening and the spiritual journey, is we're all made from energy. So I've always tried to have positive energy for things. But working in a field where so many people, you see so much sadness and grief and strife and underlying angers and so many negative feelings and negative thoughts going on, that it could deplete you at times. But the population that I worked in, I learned, like, that's not the majority of people out there. It's our job to bring up the energy. And there were some days that I didn't have any positive energy. And it would be a client, or it would be somebody that I had worked with that would say some positive thing towards me that uplifted that energy, that uplifted my spirit, that it was, I see you and I hear you. They would ask me just as much how I was feeling as I asked them how they were feeling. It's like once you establish trust with anybody, um, whether it's an organization, or a person, then that person's going to see you and hear you and uplift you whenever you need it, notice whenever you need some extra. But if you have an environment that doesn't see you and doesn't hear you, it can keep you in that negative energy. And people pleasing can do that because people pleasing starts from negative. It starts from, I don't feel this way about myself. I'm going to do whatever in order for you to give me the positive reaction, you to give me the positive feeling. That puts people pleasing puts another person in charge of your feelings. And so if you don't get that back from that person, then it leaves you in that negative feeling. And I know for me personally, I had stopped people pleasing years ago because I was like, I can't do it. I can't be anybody's savior. I can't please everybody all the time. I can't, I'm strong enough in who I am to know that I can do this and this and this, but that's it. I can't sacrifice myself. Those two things go hand in hand. About people pleasing can turn into self-sacrifice. So even though you're doing something to try to get some response out of somebody, if you know it's not going to make you feel good, you sacrifice yourself. And then if it didn't make you feel good, because you already knew in advance it didn't, or it wasn't going to, then you get mad at yourself for sacrificing yourself. You feel taken advantage of. You feel used. You feel still in the negative, not only for what you did for them, but for not getting anything back from it. And I think that there needs to be more awareness on that. I think that our country's so divided that a lot of people feel like they have no choice but to do that, because if they don't do that, then they're viewed a certain way. If you don't do as I say what makes me happy, then I'm going to think that you're horrible. I'm going to think this negative way about you. And then that causes people to not only be sad about feeling like they have to self-sacrifice in order to keep the peace, but it also builds up resentment, where then you get mad at yourself. And then you might turn it on the other person too and blame them. So I know for me personally, a lot of it was digging into what is self-worth. Who am I without these relationships? Who am I outside of this tie to this person? I was forced to do that and be on my own and figure out things myself. And it made me a stronger person to know that I'm self-sufficient. But at the same time, it made me so resentful for the kind things that I did so many times that I would say, I wasn't doing this to people please. Yes, I do want you to be happy. It's not about my happiness. I want you to be happy. I want you to know that I see you and that I hear you. I want you to know that you deserve all these things. Not to people please, not to get any sort of kudos for it. But I know sometimes in my defenses, if something had ended, or like with my work, I turned in my resignation and it was like within, a short amount of time, like, okay, see you later. That I was thinking, so for a while now, I felt like you don't care. For a while now, I felt like you don't see me or hear me. So I guess, and you don't value me. So I guess that's true. I guess you really don't care. It's like, see you later. Here's the HR stuff. And I think some of that was maybe because I'm the truth teller a lot of times. Jobs that I've had, it's been like that. Like, you guys think I'm great when I'm doing all the things, but then whenever I complain, now you're saying that I'm the problem, when I'm just pointing out the problems. And then now that I'm gone, now you wonder, where's that girl who used to do all that stuff? And I did that with several jobs. Like, I worked at Walmart, and it was the same thing, where I'd be like, here's my job. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to point out, like, poor claims practices. That's what I'm doing. Why do you keep saying negative things? Well, because this keeps happening, and we're losing money. And I thought the whole point was to save money. And now you asked me to tell you what the problems are. I'm telling you what the problems are. And maybe it's like somebody else isn't doing their job, or somebody else isn't educated about what they should do. And I've always been the person who's like, okay, well, you didn't know this time. Okay, let me show you. Pull out your handheld. This is what we need to do. Or, pull up SOPs and be like, okay, this is the process. We have to do this. But then it became like there's so many issues and problems that I'm like, we're losing money. I'm telling you guys, we're losing money. I need to tell you. And then it was like, will you please quit complaining? Will you please quit doing that? I'm like, okay, it's not my job to train everybody. It's not my job to do everybody else's jobs. It's not like I am exhausted and tired. And I feel like you don't value me and you don't see me. So I'm thinking about getting another job. And, I quit. And it was like, okay, whatever. The problem's gone. But then I'd be shopping later and people would come up and ask me, like, hey, how do you do this? I'm thinking, like, I don't work here anymore. Like, remember when you guys told me I was the problem? Like, hello. And I've felt that way a lot of my life. It's like, I've tried to do so many things for so many people to make them feel seen and heard, because I know that was my wound. My wound was like, people don't see me. People don't hear me. Like, does anybody know I'm alive out there? I kind of feel like a ghost. I'm doing all the things, but nobody's noticing, and then, speak up. And then it was like, oh, now we see you. Now you're the problem. We see you as the problem. Could you just be quiet and keep doing all the stuff? And then I'd be like, all right, well, I'm running on low. Anybody care? I'm reaching out for help. I'm asking for help, which is very hard for me. Well, no, now you're asking for help in the wrong way. You know what I mean? Like, do you have to raise your voice? I'm like, okay, but I first wasn't raising my voice. Remember months ago when I was telling you guys this? Remember when I was trying to help everybody out? Remember that? And then, I feel like, then I'd be like, all right, well, guess I'm not valued here. Guess I'm not wanted here. I'm definitely needed here, I know that. But the needs are exhausting. So I'm probably gonna leave because I can't do this forever by myself while feeling invisible or only seen as the problem. And then I would leave. And then people would be like, where did that girl go? Where's that person? Where's that person who was doing all the stuff? Where I'd say, like, people only see me in my absence. So, and I'd be like, well, in the ways that I was doing things, I also thought people might see me. That I'm like, I want you to know that I saw you. And so I gave you this specific thing that I found based on a conversation that we had months ago. Or you told me you were stressed about something, so about being disorganized, so I organized everything. You told me you were in pain. So here I did all this research and I figured out how to get you out of pain, and I'm willing to help you. But then if the person just doesn't see you for all those things, erases you the second that you have an issue, that was where I would just think, like, so I'm not enough in the positive for people to see me. They just expect everything of me. And so I stopped that. I stopped doing everything for everybody. And then feeling like when I complained, in order for me to balance myself out, for me to still be functional, then now I'm too much negative. Now you see me, but you see me as the problem. Well then I will just stop because it seems like I can't balance it out, and I think our world is so stuck in the black and white of so divided of everything is you're either right or you're wrong. You either be silent, you're either too quiet, and we need you to speak up, or you're too loud and you need to be quiet. And I'm thinking that maybe, things might be, maybe that's why Mother Nature's rebelling so much, why there's so much going on in the universe, is because it's so divided. Everything keeps trying to balance out. And I know for me, I'm a Libra, so I'm constantly trying to balance everything, constantly trying to balance out the world, balance out others, balance out everything so that maybe I could be balanced. And always thinking like I've always got to do everything externally first and not internally. And part of the stopping people pleasing was putting up boundaries, saying, no, I've got to balance myself out internally. I cannot sacrifice for everybody. I cannot take myself away in order to please everybody or to, fill in the holes of others. Because then that just teaches other people that they don't have to do it. That That I always said, like, I definitely know I'm needed. I've always known that I've been needed. I've always felt like I had a job doing something, most of the time. And then having this feeling of I don't feel wanted. I don't feel wanted for all of me. Because a lot of people would rather me just do everything and be quiet, no matter what it does to me. And the stopping the people pleasing, forced me to speak up. And then being told, like, now you're the problem. Now you're just complaining. Now you're negative. Can't you just be positive again? Because that's when we liked you better. And I had spent so much time saying, like, I'm trying to be positive. Can I be seen and heard? That would really help me. But leaving that to other people, some people don't want to see you. Some people don't want to hear you. Especially if those people know that you'll people please. And for me, it was stopping with you're not going to make me feel guilty that I'm not doing everything. You're not going to make me feel guilty because I said I can't do anymore. You're not going to be in charge of the way that I think about myself because I know my self-worth. And I know that the gifts that I give people, I give from the heart. I spend time. I research, so that they can know I see you and here I created this thing for you, or I got this thing for you to let you know I see you and I want you to have it, or to be happy, in knowing that I see you and I hear you. But I think if we have a world where people don't see and hear themselves, because I think that's a lot of it, like half of the population doesn't know what they're doing, you know doesn't know what other people are doing. Like, a lot of people are blind and deaf. And for me, a lot of times it was knowing how much I could take, paying attention to my body, knowing, like, this is not physically making me feel good. This is not mentally making me feel good. I can no longer do that. I have to give to myself. So for all the former people pleasers out there, congratulations, because we've awakened to ending the self-sacrifice in order to keep other people happy or keep other people from having negative views of us. Because it used to hurt me so much, like the opinions of other people. And don't get me wrong, I still sometimes get hurt when I feel like people really know me or should know me and they've judged me incorrectly. But I think now I'm just at that point in my life, and maybe it's turning 50, of going, like, I really don't care. If you don't like me, oh well. Like, I know I'm a likable person. That doesn't make me conceited. I know I have good qualities. And one of those qualities now is being able to discern about what makes me happy, what doesn't, what makes me comfortable, what doesn't, what makes me feel safe, what doesn't. But just because somebody has that opinion, if I say no and somebody hates me because of it, then oh well, that's their loss. I used to think it was painful losing people who rejected me, that I would think that was my loss all the time. and living in a lifetime of experiencing losses so much. Having to leave people or people leave me would hurt so much that I would stay in those losses, and then I would try to do everything I could then to try to keep that person happy because I didn't want to experience the loss of them. But that just that just made me lose myself. That just made me so um, sad about never getting to be myself. And it was through helping that population and, times here and there with people, and times when I had somebody that would be honest with me, that would see me, that helped me. But going through so much in the past couple of years, especially this year, I realized like I can't stay in those losses because that just keeps my focus on what I don't have, of who I don't have. And it doesn't keep it on me because I'm not going to lose me. I'm all I have. So if it took stopping people pleasing, as one thing, then so be it. But I know for years I've not been in people pleasing. I've been in the things that I do with intent. And the intent is to make people feel seen and heard. Because I'd spent so much of my life not feeling seen and heard. And, I know I've made marks on people because I had former clients that would call me and say thank you. I've had people reach out to me from my past to say, you made this difference on me this long ago. So I know I'm not forgotten, but I don't need other people to remind me of who I am anymore. I know who I am, and I know my strengths. I know my weaknesses. I know that I can tell myself that everything will be okay. I know that even if somebody tells me, you're horrible because you didn't do this thing for me, I know that I can sit back and say, I'm not that person. That other person's just defensive right now. Or that other person just wants somebody to take something out on. So that's part of my truth. Congratulations to all the former people pleasers, and we'll see what the next video is going to be. I think I'm on a relationship kick. Just, that's how we are with human beings. We're all relational. And I know for me, it's have so much relatable stuff and kind of awoken to speaking up. So see you in the next one.